Hey everybody, we thought we'd do one last little video to kind of tie together and tie off the little bits and pieces of Division 4 and Division 6 and the other element of Division 23 that we'll be looking at. And I'm going to start with Division 6. I didn't put any text up here because we believe this is pretty much completed. I think that we would say that our understanding is that no more work is needed on Division 6. That's our understanding. We're not asserting that to be true or fact, but that's what we think, and let us know if we're wrong, right? We understand and appreciate that not all the members of the RAC are thrilled with the idea of possibly using forest land for solar, but but everybody seems to be generally comfortable with where we landed on that. I'm going to try to share my screen here and go at the Division 4 stuff. And I started out of order because we didn't have any text for Division 6, but as you remember, Division 4 is our exceptions rule. And this is a bit of an outlier because so much of the work and discussion has been about when exceptions aren't required or shouldn't be needed. Exceptions the more detailed and more complicated and risky land use process, but it's still there. Nothing about this work on the 33 and 23 rules would remove the ability for someone to apply for an exception. And so we wanted to account for that as well. And in this particular context, we'd be looking at a reasons exception. That's how someone would go about justifying a larger project size for solar than would otherwise be allowed. And the existing language is pretty clear that when you take a reasons exception, you limit the use of those lands only to those that are justified in the exception. It also says that you can consider changing those uses, but it takes a new exception, it takes a reconsideration. So if a site that was accepted for solar development ends up being recognized for some, I don't know what other use it would be. Maybe, I don't know, I want to say data center, but I don't know if that's a good example or not. It's eligible for consideration, but it has to take a new exception. This language is what we've offered here to provide some clarity, guidance on how you plan and zone lands that have been approved for an exception for a larger solar project on resource lands. We think that providing this guidance removes questions about what the right step is, and removing questions remove risk, and that's a good thing. And so, as we talked about before, in these instances, they would be remain zoned for EFU or forest use, and that I can recognize these are different. Solar is a different type of use in that I can't think of any other activity that is expected to be returned to farm use after its useful lifespan has ended. Maybe there are others, I can't think of them, but that is unique. It's unique in these circumstances that they've used for this for a while, but then put back to farm use. And so it seemed reasonable to continue that farm zoning or forest zoning, whatever is applicable. And that's how things are going now. That's how we understand counties and applicants are treating this issue right now. So it's a bit of a best practice. We realized that when we drafted this language, we think it was before we'd made some choices about how Division 23 worked and Division 33 and Section 45 worked. And so I think we're left with a bit of a question, and we want to make sure that we've talked about it with the RAC, or that we've got a sense of the RAC, and that is which one of these rules should apply. If it is Section 38, that's the existing language, and that's how things are now. I believe Division 45, Section 45 is a new language that we've been working on. And there's a couple of different ways to look at it, right? I think one way to look at it would be that, let's just keep going with the 38 language. That's how things are now. It's consistent with how things are now. The wildlife provisions would not be affected because that's in another area of the law. Another way to look at it could be that, since we're talking about projects that could be the biggest possible under county jurisdiction, going with 38 versus 45 could mean that, there's no agricultural mitigation requirements for those largest projects. It can mean that there's no community benefit considerations required. There'll be less guidance on how to respond to and consider the cultural, historic, and archaeological resources questions. There wouldn't be an opportunity to provide for or allow temporary workforce housing based on the definition in Section 38. The study area for cumulative impact analysis would be the smaller one written for the 12-acre or 20-acre projects, which might render it meaningless, for a 3,800-acre project. I don't know whether measuring from a mile from the center of that project even gets us off of that project footprint. So it may not tell us very much. In either instance, right, either way, the farm forest compatibility, the ORS 215-296 criteria don't apply when there's an exception. There's some case law on that, so that makes it clear. That says how that goes. So that again, that the fundamental question here is which area should apply. The 38, which is existing, or 45, which has been specifically designed to account for larger projects. And again, there's a couple ways to go. I'm going to stop sharing real quickly because I want to make sure I don't lose what I'm looking for and looking at. I'm going to go here. So this is the last piece I think we have that's the provisions of 0190 Division 23. And this, if you may remember, we did talk about it a bit, taking a back seat to some of the other more, I guess, detailed conversations. This is a long-standing requirement that says that counties are obligated to include sites or plans that are approved through or applied to for the Oregon Energy Facility Siting Council, FSEC, or FERC, Federal Regulatory Commission, that if lands are subject to an application or an approval by either one of those bodies, the counties need to identify it as a significant Goal 5 resource and go through that work. That's been very underappreciated, overlooked, however you want to call it. The baseline, no one's really done it, and no one's really complained about it not being done. So I think it's a reasonable question: does it remain to be something that's important? This is how we had it written up. Again, we wrote this, I think, drafted this before we made the distinction between the approaches in Division 33 and Division 23. And so let me do this again, just kind of refresh. What we're thinking about is something will look like this. And this is a subject, Wasco County is one jurisdiction that has taken a run at it. And I think they found that it's complicated and there's a lot of, questions that aren't easily answered there. So what we've done is to restructure it a little bit and basically carve out photovoltaic solar from this obligation. We've softened the language a little bit, which is because this piece doesn't really apply anymore. But the upshot is that, we didn't feel it was appropriate to get into all of the energy types, but given our emphasis on photovoltaic solar facilities, we did feel this is another area where providing some clarity improves the circumstances and provides for less risk. And less risk is, we think, less risk is always good. Less risk is better than more risk, right? So that's what we've done. We try to structure in such a way that clearly counties can amend their comp plans either through the standard process or the new process for solar. But where there's been proposals to FSEC or FERC, counties no longer would have the obligation to identify them as significant sites. So right now we've got a whole bunch of them. We got the Deschutes River project in South Wasco County. We've got the bake oven stuff in South Wasco County. We've got Buckley and Speedway and probably others in Sherman County. We've got um, Sunstone and Wagon Trail and the other third big project in Morrow County. Technically, all those would need to be inventoried by those counties and placed on the inventory of significant sites. This would relieve them from that. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm going to stop this recording. I want to thank everybody again for your patience and your coming to these conversations with open mind and a sense of humor. Yeah, I know sometimes it has taken a sense of adventure too. We'll see you soon.